video on a trip from Eastland in Ringwood to Templestowe. In this video, what I'm doing is running my own speed limit alerts web app on the phone along with Waze, so that people can see the difference between my web app and Waze. Waze is a very good product, in some respects better than what I've written, but I've created my own
camera ahead. The speed limit is 60 kilometers.
My own
camera nearby. Camera nearby.
And that's the web app making the announcement about this camera coming up. Surprisingly, the Waze does not warn me for some reason. Now, the reason I've created this web app is because with Waze, whilst it's good, it has two issues which I felt maybe I could do something about. And one is that it comes up with two speed values, one for the speed you're driving, which I'm happy with the speedo in the car, although the speedo does read a bit low, as most cars of this age or up until recently would. And the second and most important is there's a number that comes up which is a speed limit on Waze. Now that speed limit is so small I can't read it, so I went to the forums over the last couple of years and noticed and submitted requests to say that I'd like it changed, as we can all do, and I've noticed hundreds if not thousands of other people doing the same. So no change in the last couple of years, so I thought, well, I've got the ability or skill to write a program, so why not? And I've been building some speedos over the last few years, and I thought take the technology that I've developed and put it into a speed limit alert to update my speed camera location site. So anyway, I've built it.
Camera nearby. Camera nearby.
And it works pretty much to my satisfaction. A couple of places when you turn corners, it does not quite work as it should. Like if it's an angle that's not a turn, but overall it does what I want, and combine that with me reading the speed signs, generally straight lines, straight roads and things like that, not an issue. Curves, not an issue, but there's just some turns where it might not reset. This is showing 60 kilometers an hour, and so the speed limit is based on where the signs are. If there's no signs, this actually works like you do. If there's no signs on the road for you to see, it doesn't know what the speed limit is, and it can't tell me. So I actually prefer that to the Waze, because if I get booked for doing something, I like to know why. If I've done something wrong, I'm happy to cop the fine. Well, I'm not happy, but I'm happier than if I feel like I've been jibbed because there was something wrong, such as the signs were not visible, the signs were removed. In one case, for example, a parking fine I fought because the signs were actually too far apart, and it took 18 months, but after that 18 months they withdrew the fine. So, because if they had let it go to court, there's a good chance they would have lost, and then other people could have probably taken up the same thing. So they don't want people to know that the signs are too far apart, and this is in Box Hill. So I'm happy to fight it. I'm happy to go to the court and plead my case if I feel like I've been wronged in some way. It is a risk, and it's a large risk if you do take it to court. The system is designed against you, not for you. But there are circumstances, I believe, that that things should be fought. For example, one speed camera in Hoddle Street, that speed camera doesn't have sufficient time. The amber setting by the Victorian standard, it's not an Australian standard, and camera commissioner stated it should be, for turn, it should be 3 seconds. There's one in Hoddle Street which has the amber setting for less than 3 seconds. If I was booked, would actually take that to court, because they need to make sure that their equipment complies. So you may or may not win, but at the end of the day, I mean, this camera literally goes for 6 seconds, most of the time 17, 19 seconds on amber, but every now and again it has a very short cycle, and that catches people out. They don't expect that. You might drive through that dozens of times and never get a short cycle, but all of a sudden, bang, short cycle, lets 2 or 3 cars through maximum, but it catches up people out because they're not really expecting that sort of change. But in addition to that, the timing does not show amber for the full 3 seconds. So here we're coming up, it's an 80 kilometre zone.
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
Now you'll see that my Navman dashman said it's 40 kilometres an hour here. The Waze is still saying 80. I don't know if that's going to change. Mine's saying 80 because I haven't reached the sign, but this is the second problem with Waze, is that it doesn't change based on the time of day. It provides a default speed limit. So in Warrigal Road, where I did get a speeding fine, it's a 40 kilometre hour zone during certain times, and 60 is the default. So Waze will tell me, going through a red light speed camera, that the area is a 60 kilometre hour road, in which actual fact it's 40. So Waze hasn't gone far enough. They've made it good enough, but not as good as what it could be. So those two changes, I believe, need to be made to that program to make it a better program. So here we'll see that my web app is showing 60 because it is the school zone time, school time now, but the Waze is not. And the Navman dash cam, as you can see, it said it was 40, and it's certainly not 40. It's never 40. But they've just taken a blanket approach and said all of the school zones are 40, so we'll just use that. Again, not good enough. So today what I'm doing is running a video which shows my web app running above the Waze native app. Native app's built in the system, so in some cases they can run in the background and keep function. The web app can't. It needs to remain with the focus. So if the screen goes off, the screen goes into the background, my web app goes into the background, it will stop working. I accept that because I don't touch the phone while I'm driving. If a phone call comes through, I've set the Android phone, the Samsung S21, to pop up a small pop-up, and that small pop-up means that my app keeps running in the background. So that's one setting that you can actually set. I believe the iPhone by default has that setting, but the Android has by default the full screen. So I've changed that. It's one of those tips to make it work. So I'm not going to basically touch this phone the whole time. The app does have the ability to report mobile speed cameras, police speed cameras, and mobile phone / seatbelt cameras. And so that's there, but really you shouldn't touch the phone, and you should ask for the passenger to actually click on and report those.
The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
Now you'll see we're going through, the Navman dashcam has said 40 kilometres an hour. It's 80 according to speed limit there. There is no 40 sign along here whatsoever. So the Navman dashcam, and this is the Navman 4K dashcam. It's $369, so it's not a cheap dashcam. I didn't get it so much for these alerts. I purchased it because I do the videos and felt 4K would be the next quality of videos that people will be watching. Now, they're not watching yet, but in the future, if they look back, they will certainly be able to watch 4K videos that I've recorded at my various drives. So, as you can see now, the speed signs are not being...
Red light camera reported ahead.
So that was Waze letting us know there's a red light camera. It is quite a distance to that red light camera still, which is okay. I've set mine about 200 metres. I think that's a good amount to let you know. Obviously, the faster speed you go and the quicker you'll get there. But I've found that that's a good feature. One of the interesting things when you're driving is people say, if there's a speed camera up ahead, you're too late. Well, that's not true. Well, I don't believe it to be true. From all the pictures that I've investigated and checked, the distance is not that great when you're talking about where the speed cameras will detect you. So if you see a police down the road, or if you see a speed camera get reported, you can gently check you're safe to do so.
Camera nearby. Camera nearby.
So you can see all the devices pick that up, and Navman picked it up about at the same time as my web app, and that's working exactly as you'd like it to, or as I'd like it to. So anyway, as I was saying, you get an alert like that, check the mirror, make sure it's safe to actually slow down, and then apply the brakes gently. And it's amazing how quickly the car will slow down. And a few kilometres an hour, if you're speeding, can bring you under that limit. If you haven't been paying attention, you can easily bring yourself down to the speed limit and not get a fine. There is a buffer that the government does provide, but I'm of the belief, I personally just simply want to drive at or below the speed limit. So not based on my car's speed limit, because I like to drive a little bit low for the speed limit. So say my car is reading 60, the car is actually doing about 56, and if I was to take off a couple of kilometres because of just parallax error reading the speedo, or just sitting slightly below the speed limit, I'm doing about 54, 60 kilometres an hour. I don't think that's good enough. I think that if you've got one group of cars going at the speed limit and another group of cars doing 50 to 54, it's just plain dangerous. And that inconsistent driving is not good. So I've built this so that I can easily see on the left-hand side is the speed, a black speedo speed that I'm driving on a white background. When it gets within 5 kilometres of the current speed limit, it goes to a green background. So if I can sit comfortably in that green zone, then it's good. And if I go 1 kilometre an hour or more over the speed limit, the posted speed limit, or what I've detected, then it will go red and tell me to slow down. But it'll only do that after I've remained in that speed limit for 2 readings of the GPS. Usually allow about 2 seconds, although it could be anything from half a second or less than half a second up to 2 seconds between GPS readings. So I'm happy with that. The speed limit on the right hand side shows a white background with the current speed limit in red. If it's when I turn this corner, you'll notice that the speed limit goes to dashes because I've changed roads, and until there's a speed sign, I don't really know what the road speed is. It could be 80 along this road. Most of Springvale Road is 80, but recently they've dropped it down to 60. Might have been 70 before. I can't remember, but it's now 60. So when you turn this corner, you may get a speed sign in this case you do, but some places you don't. You don't know what the speed of that section of the road is. And so this is the way my web app works. Until you get to a sign, it doesn't know what the speed limit is. So you have to take due care as you do driving. You can't just assume it is. Other apps like Waze or Google Maps showing the speed limit,
kilometers.
So
40 kilometers.
yeah. So anyway, the speed. Now, the Navman said there's a 40 kilometre speed limit along here for the school zone. That used to be a school many years, or quite a few years ago, on the left-hand side. And the Navman's reporting it at 40 kilometres an hour, which it's a 60 kilometre an hour road. So the Navman, even though it's less than a year old, has data that's multiple years old. The Waze was correct in this case. Now what we'll do is we're going to go past a couple of schools to see the effect on school zones. So we might zip down the freeway up here and be able to compare the Waze to my web app, and then we'll go down the school zones. One in Doncaster East will be time of day, and another one in Doncaster area, which will be it will be just the standard signs of 40 that are the whole time, so you won't notice it. I might actually turn around and do another one where it actually changes during time of day. So a bit of testing going on. Now, I've been working on this web app for about 5 months now, since May. 4-week holiday in there, but it is actually quite difficult to technically get everything right, and there's still things that I would like to have better, and one of it is I haven't quite got the turning algorithm correct. The other thing is the data. The data is based on the Victorian government's data for speed signs, and it's about 80 to 85%, I'd guess, accurate. So there's about 10 to 15% of speed signs that are out of date, removed, and that needs to be, we need to locate those over time. I'm doing that for my area. If other people are interested and can let me know of issues in their areas, then that's appreciated. Completely up to other people. I write these web apps for myself and for my family to use. For me, that's the enjoyment that I get out of them. I make them available for other people because if it helps me, it helps others. So if it helps you, then great, use it. Keep in mind that it's not perfect, but it's getting to the point where for me it's personally acceptable. I will keep on trying to improve it over time. Now here we turn onto the freeway, and I would have liked to have seen that go to dashes for a small moment while we go around that, but it stayed at 80, so I think that's not quite sensitive enough. So I still do need to do some work on turning. So we're coming along here at 100, the speed signs pop up, we can see them, and the web app responds appropriately. Now, as I said, the background of the speed limit sign, white background normally, but there's two places where I've changed it so that the Metropolitan Ring Road, Tullamarine Freeway and Monash Freeway have what are called variable speed signs. For variable speed signs, these can change at any time of the day. There's no set time for which they would change. So you can be driving along and they can change, and it's human nature not to notice those, because if you're used to something that occurs regularly, like the signs say 100 kilometres an hour, 53% of people won't notice a single one of those signs. If a single one changes, they won't notice, and that could happen near or at the speed camera. So near Sydney Road, a very high number of people do get fined at that location. push aside the speed limits that normally operate on those roads, so that they're not detected. They're still there, but and until those roadworks are completed, you don't know which ones will stay and which ones will go. But whilst the roadwork signs are there, then what I've done is I've entered the roadwork signs, and if you go through a roadwork area, then the background for the speed limit will show the speed limit for the roadworks. And keep in mind that there's always other roadwork going on with inside roadworks, so it could change even then, but the background will change to orange to let you know it's a roadwork zone. And of course you should be just watching the speed signs, but it's just an extra aid to assist. And more importantly is the speed signs that would normally operate there, such as 70 or 80, where it's now a 60 or 40 zone, are disabled, so that they don't give you the impression that you can go faster in those zones. Now, one of the features that I've built in this for Victoria, I've put in over 64,000 signs are in there, and it works pretty well in my opinion around the metropolitan area and probably the main freeways and highways. However, in other states where I don't have the speed signs, or in areas in the country where there may not be a speed sign, it's got the ability to
Slow down.
the ability to select the speed. So if you're driving along 110 kilometres an hour on the freeway, you can select 110 and it will warn you if you're going too fast. Auto picks up the speed signs, and so for example, if you go around on a country road and there's a speed sign and they have them at frequent locations and it's 100 kilometres an hour, and you do a U-turn, then that U-turn is a turn, and so it won't know what the speed limit is after that. So if, say, the road was 60 kilometres an hour, you can select 60, and then it will keep you within the speed limit. So in certain areas it may be better to use the fixed speed. Just in a lot of cars have the ability to set it at a given speed. So for example, if you're driving around in a 40 kilometre hour zone, speed limit area, and want to make sure you don't exceed that because there's no signs, it's a speed limit area, so only when you enter and exit it does it change, you could set it to 40 kilometres an hour. So I did miss the school zone I wanted to check just before, so we'll go down here and go through two different speed zones, two different school speed zones. That's okay. Now, one of the other things built into it are the red light speed cameras, and the red light speed cameras in the Navman, the TomTom Amigo app, they can tend to be, no matter which direction you're approaching an intersection with a speed camera, red light speed camera, it will tell you that you're approaching one irrespective of the direction. Whereas I've built into this web app that it will only tell you if you're approaching where the camera is. That's for Victoria. Interstate, I don't yet know the direction. Well, I know where the cameras are located, but I need to go back through probably close to 1,000 red light speed cameras and put in the bearing for each of those cameras. So for those cameras, so for interstate at the moment, it's just like those apps. Waze, on the other hand, is pretty good and it already has the directional bearing for all states across Australia. So Waze and my app is very similar in that respect, is that they can, in theory, give you a warning for the direction that's affected by the speed camera. Mobile speed cameras, phone ones, and police, it's really a radius around the camera. It doesn't matter which direction. It's because you could be coming from either direction when it comes to one of those, because on this street, for example, there was a speed camera that booked people on both sides of the road, so it's coming from either direction. So I've decided just to make that not based on a direction, but just a distance from the camera. So here we go past
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
Here we go past the Doncaster Secondary College. It's telling me 40. We are now reaching the 40. The sign updates, and the Waze is also correct. And the Waze is correct because this is a standard speed zone. And the next one is up near Manningham Road and Williamson's Road. We'll go through that section and we'll see how, because that's, I think, a variable speed or changes based on the time of day, and we'll see how the different apps respond to that. And here we are at 50 kilometres an hour again. One of the other things that I have built into my web app is the time of day. In Victoria, particularly around shops, we're moving a large number of shops now have 40 kilometre hour zones around them during certain times of the day. Talking quite a few hundred of them, I think. And so I've built in the speed limit around those shops in the app, whereas the Waze app is basically shows the default speed. Now that's not a good thing, because if you look at the top 10 speed cameras for Victoria, you'll actually see up in the top
The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
some of the top cameras that you see. A couple of them will be where there's actually changes during time of day, and so you don't want to. You want to keep your eyes on out for the signs of changing times. Now here we're coming along here. It's sort of, the Navman's warned me 40 kilometres an hour. There is a school up here, a primary school on the right hand side. I'm not seeing a 40 kilometre hour sign. So 60 kilometres an hour down that side street, yes, but not here. I have no idea why the Navman dashcam would do that, but it does do that. So, and that's, I actually use Waze and I used the Navman in the past to assist me, and it was quite disturbing, quite disturbing that you'd be warned of the speed. Now the problem that I have is I work from home. I'm retired, and sometimes I don't even know what day of the week it is. So when I go out driving and I go through a school zone area, I don't have children at school anymore. I don't know when the school terms are. So when I hit a school zone, I have to think first of all, what time of day it is? Yes. What day of the week it is? Yes. Is it a school term? And I find myself braking through school zones because I think it's actually might be a school day, and it might be a Sunday, or it might be out of school terms, but I have no idea. So I've built into my web app the time of day, the day of the week, and the school terms, and so that gives me full coverage of the school zone signs, and it's I find it very handy. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. I get informed. It tells me if I'm speeding. That gives me peace of mind. The large numbers lets me see what I need to know at a glance, so I don't have to take my eyes off the road very much. The time of day information. So really all I have to do is have the data for the areas that I cover up to date, and I have a much better driving experience with less stress. So that's why I built the web app. It's to help me drive with less stress. Now, to be fair, I haven't been fined for breaking a road law or road rule for many, many years. Now, to be fair on that, I probably have broken road rules, but I'm not aware of it, or it was an error on my part, and I haven't been caught. So I'm not saying that I'm driven perfectly. I'm just saying that I haven't been fined, because all of us make driving errors probably every time we go out. It might be you pull up. How many people have you seen in a situation like this where there's a line of cars and a person decides to take out and go into another line at the last minute, decides to pull into the shopping centre, but there's a solid white line. You're not allowed to cross that solid white line. And so, when I say that, you're not allowed to cross a solid white line unless you're turning off the road. So maybe you can actually turn, but in actual fact, you've got to follow the arrows on the road. So if at the end of the day if there was an arrow going straight ahead, you can't pull across into that right-hand lane. Now I can't see the size of the
Slow down.
The size of the Waze, but you can see I was just coming around there a little bit faster.
Slow down.
And I'm being told to slow down, which is exactly what I want. One of the interesting things I read in the learner's guide is that you will lose points for driving above the speed limit, but as long as you don't drive above the speed limit for more than 5 seconds, and for I think it's 5 seconds, but I can't be sure of that, and then you don't drive more than 5 kilometres an hour above the then it won't be an immediate fail. If you drive for longer than that period of time, or above the speed limit by more than 5 kilometres, it's probably an immediate termination of your road test. So here we are, we're going now, because I did a U-turn, it's currently unknown. This road here right now is 70 kilometres an hour.
School zone ahead. The speed limit
But
is
because I didn't go
40
past
kilometres.
a speed sign, then it's unknown until it reaches a speed sign. Now if I sit on 40, according to my speedo, then the actual speed is probably closer to 34 kilometres an hour. So if I sat just below the 40, because I like to sit just as close, well, near as practicable to the speed limit, and so if I sat below the 40, then I'd probably be driving at 32 kilometres an hour. frankly, it really bothers me that the government has set it so that our equipment can't just simply be accurate. It's almost like waking up to your alarm clock in the morning and setting your clock 5 minutes slow or fast, so that when you wake up, you're not late. So you're just obviously fooling yourself, but lots of people do that. So rather than setting it, you could set your alarm 5 minutes early, but people tend to do it the other way around, which set the alarm on time but make the clock 5 minutes fast, and so they get up 5 minutes early. Same effect, but psychologically a bit more pleasant when you actually get up at the time you're expected to. And same with the speed limits on the roads. If your speedo read accurately, everybody would be driving, in theory, could drive at or near the speed limit or appropriate for the conditions. Whereas some people listen to the knock-off 5 that the government pushed for a while, and so they knocked off 5 off the speed. So you get 4 off the because of the speedo's inaccuracy, another 5 because it's blowing and below the speed limit, and the end result is you're actually driving close to 10 kilometres below, whilst other cars are zipping past. They're using a modern speedo or a GPS device, so you've got this differential occurring in the traffic, and that creates issues. If cars tend to have less accidents if everybody's travelling around the same sort of speed. It's very apparent when one lane is slow and you've got a fast lane and an almost stop lane, and then the people try to dash out from the stop lane, not realising how fast the cars are coming down from behind. Anyway, that's the web app, and as you can see, if you've been watching this, you can compare the speed of the Waze speedo versus the web app I've developed. And as I've been watching the speed and checking it over past tests that I've done, they are pretty much the same. Sometimes at the very start there might be a difference, but once it's started, I found the Waze app might not register the first starts as early. My app might be a little bit all over the place as it tries to synchronize with all the satellites. So the Waze app can be a little bit better as you turn the car on, go out of the garage, and it finds all the satellites to give you a more accurate reading. However, I found that after a short period of time, which at the start you're usually driving around in the suburbs where the speed limit is 50 kilometres an hour, then shortly, 10-15 seconds later, then they're usually in sync with one another, and I found that they pretty much well match each other. So that's a good thing. It shows that the web apps and the native apps are using the same satellite information, and that's good to know if you're a web app developer. So this is now the last leg before I reach my area. So I'd just like to take the time to thank everybody for keeping me company and watching this video. I'll have more videos with regards to the speed limit alerts, some hints and tips, because there's lots of little things to know. But basically, if the speedo speed limit alerts web app is working and you're not speeding, it will make very little noise. It will let you know when you're approaching red light cameras. If people report the red light and speed cameras, if people report mobile cameras, then it will let you know those as well. The most important part is it will help you a bit more know the speed limits on the roads that you're actually driving around, particularly in metropolitan Melbourne. And in the future, I hope to extend that across to all states, all states and territories across Australia. But that will require assistance of other people. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you've enjoyed this video.